Hey Grace, how you doing? Let's go ahead and take a look at your sketches and let's see what we have. Okay, Grace, I think the first and the most notable thing here is that these aren't labeled with your words from your word list. And the important thing about the important tie here by labeling these is showing an association from your sketch to one of the words. So in other words, you're actually sketching with intent as opposed to arbitrarily sketching ideas, based on the ideas as they come to you. The meaningful part of this assignment is to take your pre-assigned meaning that you generated through those word lists, take one of those words, bring it over here and say, okay, I'm going to represent this word in my word mark sketches in this particular way. Okay, so what we're doing is we're eliminating the possibility of arbitrary decisions that aren't based on any research, data extraction, or assignment of meaning to the client. And that's the whole point. And that's really, honestly, Grace, that's the whole point of the class, is understanding how to use what you have gathered in your research stage. And in this particular case, it's those word lists that we generated, and we've assigned these meaningful words to our client. Now we're going to show how we take those meaningful words assigned to the client and represent those visually. In this case, through our word marks. Last week, through our logo marks, right? So there has to be some sort of conceptual tie here, and the only way we know that tie is for you to label these with your words from your word list. So that I will definitely need to see that these labeled for your final milestone submission at the end of the week. Now, I think you've got some great ideas here. I think that you're definitely showing a good propensity to establish a nice variety for your client. And so far, I think everything is looking great. Okay. Now, if we were in a studio setting, I would say this, okay, and you need to have answers for questions like this, Grace, but the question would be this, okay, so, okay, what does this script depiction of the company, Guardian Network Security, on 3 lines, what is the significance of that? And that would be a very typical question that the designer would receive in a studio setting by either your creative director or your art director, or possibly even your client. So what does this mean? What is the meaning behind so as a creative director, art director, or a client, I would want to know, why are you using what looks to be a sans serif here and what looks to be a script typeface here? What's the difference? What are you trying to say? What's the meaning behind it? Okay, so just so you're aware that those questions are out there and they will be asked, and they definitely need to have answers. Okay, let's go through your sketches. Now, some of these won't be able to be used. They'll need to be replaced. Okay, so in addition to labeling these words, there's a few we're going to have to replace. This one is going to have to be replaced. Why? Because this is it's a monogram. Okay, it's just a letter G. Same thing with this. This is a monogram. Now, if you're not particularly clear about the difference between monograms, word marks, and logo marks, research your class materials a little bit. Okay, that's a monogram. That's a monogram. That's a monogram. And the rest look pretty good. Okay, so those will have to be replaced with word marks. The next thing I would recommend is this: is as a word mark, it's very easily to understand. The main thing with a word mark is that it is legible. So things like this, I would stay away from where half of it is upside down. I would stay away from something like that. I think the rest look pretty darn good in terms of legibility. This will work. Something like this will work for a word mark. So that's fine. I mean, you don't even need the network security in here. You could just say Guardian, and that'll work along with the word mark. But one caveat here is, if you're going to include things like this little kind of diagram of the circuits, somehow work those into the typography. Do you see what I'm saying? So don't use it separate as a mark. Otherwise, it wouldn't count as a word mark. It's got to be worked in to the typography. This, I think, is interesting. I think you got some really good ideas here. So what I want you to do is make those changes for your final submission, okay? But in the meantime, when you select the work to move forward to your digital rendering of the word mark, make sure that you go through your inventory here and really think about what I've said about where is this creating the best meaning? How is this creating meaning? Best example I can think of is, okay, the NFL, okay, National Football League. When you think of NFL, what would be a more effective way of presenting NFL? With big, bold block letters or with flourishy script letters like this? And I think obvious answer is with the big, bold block letters because it's a very rugged, very masculine, very strong presence. So now, on the other hand, what would be better to depict a ballet? Would it be big, bold, blocky letters or a scripted? Ballet is much more fluid. It's much more organic. It's much more feminine than, and I am by no means at all insinuating that male ballet dancers are feminine. That is not what I'm insinuating at all. I just want to make that specifically clear. But as an art form, it is much more feminine than professional football, right? So it stands to reason that those sketches would be more flourishy, more feminine in their visual posture than something that would be depicting the strength of an NFL team. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If not, let me know. I'll clarify. But yes, as I said, moving forward, just really take my thoughts into mind here, and can't wait to see your digital version of the word mark. All right, good job. Any questions? I'm right here. Thanks, Grace.